Welcome to PhD with Women on It, Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hack delivered will be by our guest, Azadeh Williams. Topic: How to sell your captivating story to boost your startup exposure. Episode 91 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring empathy to this hustle because empathy is my mojo, and empathy is critical when you are building a captivating story to boost your startup exposure. Tech companies often don't know how to do storytelling right. Some might think all they need is a good idea, or they might think that their product or service is amazing enough that they don't need to tell a story. But it doesn't work that way. Most technology companies struggle to articulate what business problems they actually solve while making it simple enough for non-technical people to grasp. Articulating your message well is an effective way to get noticed by potential customers and to create brand awareness, which is important for any business. This is where marketing, PR, and multimedia enters. And our PhD 91 guest, Azadeh Williams, Managing Director of AZK Media, is just the right person to provide insights in this scope. With over 20 years global experience in media, marketing, and PR, Azadeh is passionate about helping B2B companies expand into new and emerging markets. She has produced over 8,000 news stories, research, insights, PR, and marketing campaigns globally as a former solicitor, lecturer, and international journalist. She has been consistently recognized as B&T Women in Media and Women Leading Technology Leaders for marketing, public relations, and entrepreneurship, and awarded the best of the best in PR for Australia, Asia in 2021. Time to bring another great episode from the future. Not only from the future, because we are in completely different time zones. I'm tuning from Valletta, but actually you're gonna listen to us and watch us next week. Azadeh, let's start with a simple question. Where in the world are you, and what time is it now with you?
So our headquarters are in Sydney, Australia. Our office is at beautiful sunny Manly Beach, and it is now 7:45 in the evening. So
Well, it's quarter to 10 in Valletta, in beautiful Mediterranean island of Malta. And actually, there was lots of Maltese living in Australia, isn't there?
That's right. Yes, Australia is so beautifully multicultural. It's a lovely melting pot of lots of different nationalities.
And speaking of different nationalities, you were born and raised in Australia, or where is your name coming from? Because it's very oriental.
Yeah, so my background, so my parents are Persian by origin, but I grew up in Australia all my life. So very much Australianized, school, education, family, everyone's here.
That gives you probably the broader perspective and different mindset of being raised by a family with different background than everybody else. How was it raising in Australia?
Well, it's a very interesting question. So back in the 80s, Australia wasn't very multiculturally diverse, especially in Sydney, where I was raised. It was very monocultural, and let's just say that it was tough growing up. You know, being the only dark-haired child at school where everyone else was blonde, and very very different. Culturally, so it was quite challenging at that time, but I think Australia has really evolved since then, and now that my daughter is going to school, and she's half British, half Persian, and born in Australia. So you see this beautiful evolution now happening with everyone bringing all their different perspectives to the Australian culture.
That also helps to boost startup scene. Tell us about the startup scene in Australia, where you live.
Yeah, so Australia's going through a really interesting time now. I mean, we're seeing a lot of funding by the government, New South Wales government, federal funding, Victoria as well. Some of the larger innovation hubs around Australia are really growing. There's a huge tech renaissance happening up in Queensland and Brisbane. So there's a real shift towards more innovation, startup thinking, a lot of venture capital activity happening. It's actually a really exciting time to explore getting your startup off the ground in the region.
So what inspired you, or what attracted you to go into startup space?
So we deal not only just in the startup space, but from companies that have been around for 1 or 2 years to those that have been around for 4 or 5, 2 billion valuation, but they still consider themselves startups. So the word startup now is very broad. So a lot of what we do is when organizations get to a certain level of success in their region, especially sort of US technology vendors or those in Europe, when they get to a certain level of growth and they want to expand in new regions, like the APAC region or UK and EMEA, that's where we come in and help them grow. And in many ways, when they do start growing in new regions, they do have that really interesting startup mindset because they're pretty much starting from scratch. Nobody knows who they are in these new regions. Their customers are still unsure of what they do. They've only got very small capability, and they're quite lean. Their teams are quite lean on the ground. And for us, that's really exciting because we're really helping, especially great innovative companies that we really feel solve complex business problems, to really get them noticed and help them grow in these new regions. And it's really exciting to see them go from being totally unknown to everybody knowing who they are.
Oh, absolutely. So that's where the startup story comes in. And this is the topic of our discussion. It's really important to get your story right. Tell us, what are the most common mistakes startups make when they put their story across?
So a couple of things that is a common mistake, and this is just going from not as a PR agency lead, but as a former journalist who was pitched hundreds of these media pitches from startups every day, is just being too promotional. Storytelling, getting your name, your brand story out there in an authentic way is really not about selling and just about the product. My product has X and Y features, and you can purchase it here, and here is a demo. It's not just about that. It's about what are the complex business problems that are timely now? How do you solve them? And how do you solve them better than your competitors? And how do you then articulate that in a way that's not too technical, easy for anybody to understand? A lot of journalists are not necessarily technologists or coders by background. They've often studied media and communications, arts. They don't necessarily have a really deep intel into the complexities of a particular platform. So if your story is too technical and too hard to understand, it's just not going to resonate. Whereas if you make your brand story very palatable, easily digestible, relatable, it can really help not only resonate with your with the press, but also with prospects who can quickly, in a snapshot, just understand what you're about and why, as founders as well, why you're particularly passionate about solving that particular problem out there with your platform solution.
You speak with a passion, and I have to say, one question that I have always with these startups: how much of their story is a real story?
How much of it is a real story?
Because it almost sounds like you're trying to sell something and you have to make up something to make it palatable, relatable, and as you beautifully put it, digestible.
Well, it's not about making things up or fabricating. It's about just breaking things down in a simple, easy to understand way. You know, we talk about AI, we talk about business intelligence or data and analytics or MarTech solutions, and there's a lot of jargon. So instead of talking through about, you know, getting the things across with all these sort of technical jargon words, why don't we just use normal language so that everyone can understand it? So it's not about, you know, making up unicorns and fairies. It's just about speaking in a way that more people can understand.
Absolutely. You're trying to appeal to the market, not necessarily to other technologists. So, other, one question that I have, which is a very, very difficult subject for many startups, how to make that story not only compelling, but also how to write to journalists to make it stand out from all the stories, all the pitches they receive.
Well, how to do it? Just come to us and we can help you. that's pretty much what we do. I think before you even start putting together a media campaign or a press release or any sort of story, start by really understanding the foundations. Again, like what I mentioned, what are the business problems that you solve that are critical and timely? What's newsworthy about it? How does your platform solve those problems? If you can just articulate that, just even in bullet points, then you can translate that into a wider story that's easily understandable and has that urgency factor that that can be picked up by media. So really the job of a publication, a news publication, is to publish newsworthy items. So if you can showcase that what you do and how you solve it is really newsworthy and groundbreaking and innovative, you've got a great story to tell. Usually what we find is that companies that have a genuine innovation that is truly groundbreaking and revolutionary, the story sells itself. You know, there's no point taking a mediocre product that's not quite ready for market, that still has the bugs in it, that no one's quite confident in, and try and big it up, because it just doesn't work. But if you really can show that there's an innovative story in there, and if you have a use case, if you have a customer that already is using the solution and has results, and you can add their story into the mix, that will give you that extra power. So one thing you can start off with is those things, and then dovetail in a customer that can advocate what you're about.
So finding your brand ambassadors is the way, definitely much easier, right? Now, I can't help but think about some of the fakers in the startup industry. Have you met some of them, and can you actually spot those?
Yes. So for our agency, as an example, is we do a lot of due diligence before we onboard a client. We need to be genuinely passionate about their product. We actually request a demo before starting an engagement to actually look at the platform, its capabilities. A lot of what we find is we'll have a product that's a really great market fit for, say, the US, but say it's a data analytics product that's great for the US, but for some reason it just doesn't translate in, and it's not a good market fit for Australia. There's not enough customer base for it to work. There could be tighter data privacy rules or regulations here, where the platform is just not the right market fit, or the pricing is completely wrong. So in that sense, how do we put it? You can't, you can't really promote something that's just not going to work, no matter how much you big it up, no matter how much you put the bells and whistles on it. If it's not the market fit, there's you're just wasting your time and money. And what we normally do is have a full frank conversation with clients where we really do feel like their product isn't the right fit, and we let them know that it's best to reconsider expanding in particular regions, or perhaps redirecting their product in a different vertical or focus.
So you're not only offering the PR marketing strategy, but also you're an advisor to the startup.
Absolutely, yes. Because the last thing we want to do is promote a particular technology solution that isn't actually working in the region that we're promoting in. That actually impacts our relationship with the media, because we need to have a trustworthy relationship with media, that they know that when we pitch stories and when we're working on behalf of clients, they're genuinely great, ethical, and powerful, successful leaders in their field. And so we need to have that accountability as well when we represent clients, in front of the press.
That's remarkable, because that's actually how we met with Azadeh. Just to let you know, to our viewers, we met on LinkedIn. I put across our channels on Woman on It. Hopefully you are following us, our lovely viewers. We put your story across all our channels, and you reached out to us. And there was lots of people commenting from your network, which was amazing boost for our lovely small community. Thank you so much, Azadeh. So going back to the storytelling, going back to how you found your startup. So you say that it's important to have your use case or your first client as somebody who's going to be brand ambassador, friends, family, and foes, whoever they are part of the cheering network. In terms of your services that you offer, you said that you can stipulate whether it's going to stick in the Asian market or Australian or US market. What were the most compelling stories you could bring to us and tell us about the most successful startups from Australia that you helped reaching out globally?
Yes, so we could maybe shift it the other way around, where we're looking at the global clients that we've helped locally. So that's pretty much a lot of the power that we operate is helping global clients like in the US that come to Australia or the APAC region and helping them grow. So we've helped. Where do we start? Amperity is a great example. Recently, they're an amazing identity resolution platform and working in the CDP space. They came to the APAC region. Nobody knew anything about Amperity, who they were. They had very, very little presence. Within 1 month, we had over 20 media placements. The local representative, who is a wonderful local influencer and leader in the marketing technology space, really cemented his leadership acumen as well in the region as a representative of Amperity. And we've been really building their share of voice against their competitors to such an extent that within 6 months they've now really exceeded the space that they had anticipated. And we're now representing them across the UK and Europe. And this sort of story that we have with our clients' success replicates quite often. We had the same success with Sisense, which is a business intelligence platform, and Cheetah Digital as well, which is now part of CM Group, which is rebranded to Marigold. So we really that's really where we sit, where we love to seek our clients that have had no PR or very little PR activity in the past, really getting them accelerating their media presence and getting their name in front of the press. So Again, like what with the business that we work in are very much in data analytics, business intelligence, MarTech, customer data platforms, CDP, CX, and loyalty platforms. There are a lot of the MarTech ecosystem, data, AI. They're the kind of spaces that we work in quite extensively.
You mentioned the change of name. Why was it important to change the name? Was it specific to that area for that startup, or tell us about that?
Yeah, so for just Cheetah, I guess they wouldn't be considered a startup anymore, but Cheetah Digital was acquired by CM Group, and given CM Group now has acquired quite a lot of different marketing technology solutions, they decided at top level to rebrand just to reflect their new ecosystem. So I think that was definitely a decision made from the top group that now owns the subsidiaries.
Now, talking about startup story, talking about names, how important is to choose the right name for your startup?
So
Especially
important.
given the fact that in some areas the name may be something quite opposite.
Exactly. Yeah. So one thing that we've noticed that just don't do when you're creating a new name for your brand is something with an odd spelling. Like if you're using the word connect and you put a triple N, because what's going to happen is when you send that document with your brand name that's incorrect, has an incorrect spelling, but it's your brand name, and you send that to people, a lot of it gets auto-corrected into systems, or the press, when they upload it onto their CMS, it gets corrected, and you'll have to constantly issue editorial corrections or corrections to your prospects and partners. Oh, it's not connect with a double N, it's actually triple N. And honestly, it's the really waste of time and effort that you could do by just getting a normal word and incorrectly spelling it. So that's one thing to just absolutely avoid with the name. And also, yes, run it through translation. Look at what it means in different settings and scenarios. Sometimes things that have a bit of a symbolic meaning and the universal quite would work, or something that has an ancient meaning. Atlassian is a great example, which goes back to the atlas that has that really beautiful mythology resonance. Things like that are quite powerful. Another great Australian startup is Canva. Again, it's just Canva, which is so easy to remember. It's not like a spelling error or something. It's just easy to remember and articulate. So just keep it simple and avoid, useless spelling things that are just every PR person and marketer and journalist nightmare to manage.
Absolutely. Everybody loves Canva. We love Canva. And we mentioned Canva a couple of times, especially that it's a female founder. Now, Azadeh, one question. We've got beginning of 2023, we hear about job losses in tech industry. Why is it the time you claim the time is now for technology companies to consider expanding into new regions? Why?
Well, there's a lot of research that shows that the APAC region is strong, despite the fact that there's a lot of doom and gloom happening in the US and Europe and, the UK with Brexit. My daughter has just created a lovely sculpture out of marshmallows. that's
beautiful. Bravo.
Addition.
That's creativity in action.
Exactly. It looks like a Matisse. It's just getting my train of thought. But the APAC region it's its own little bubble. There's actually a lot of statistics that show that economically, it's an area of growth and potential. So it's actually a very exciting time if you do want to take your startup and start growing it into new regions, to consider the APAC region: Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, Singapore. There's some really great hubs within the APAC region that are just thriving. There's also, if you're in the e-commerce tech, in the sort of MarTech and CDP landscape as well, there's a big commerce trade development, almost kind of like a commerce renaissance that's happening in the region that can attract those sorts of solutions as well. So there's a lot of interesting things happening that we might get too caught up in the doom and gloom of what's happening in the US and the press and the buzz around those things, to not see that there's opportunities on the other side of the fence.
Opportunities on the other side of the fence. You mentioned a couple of areas and types of business that can thrive. Now, going back to how to sell your captivating story to boost your startup exposure, speaking about pitching to investors versus pitching to journalists and pitching to general public. Do you use different language, or you have the same message all across different platforms or different people?
Yes, so the core narrative, your mission and vision and values, that your why, like as Simon Sinek says, start with your why. That why should resonate and be consistent across any form of communication you do, whether it's to prospects, press, investors. All of that content and all of that messaging and positioning that you will have as your startup, that will be available publicly on digital channels, online, on your social channels. You want to make sure that baseline narrative about your brand is consistent. Sure, you can position it and angle it in different ways and bring in different narratives, different examples, depending on who you're talking to. But that foundation and fundamentals should be consistent.
Apologies, I'm on mute. It was just a cat this time round. He was building sandcastle. Luckily, he's not interrupting me and not showing me this on the screen. Now, Azadeh, here is a challenge for you. You need to sell and make sure that storytelling sells that sculpture that your daughter made. Inspire us today.
So what was the question? Sorry?
You need to do a pitch right now, live, and sell that sculpture with the storytelling in mind.
Okay. Okay, so let's have a think. Okay, you put me on the spot here. Is your child busy on their iPad? Are they struggling to keep focused? Well, have a think about the power of unlocking design thinking and creative thinking for your child. And what better way than to start with some sensory play, starting with some marshmallows.
Bravo, Azadeh, that's fabulous teaching. Absolutely. That reminds me the story of in 2014, I decided with my husband to celebrate our honeymoon by doing a startup safari. And we went through Europe and we landed in London at Google campus, and we saw competition with over 100 participants. So you can imagine how hectic it was, how everybody was trying to impress and stand out from the crowd. That's more or less what it is to pitch your idea, your startup in front of potential partners, investors, or clients. Was it stressful, Azadeh?
Yeah, look, it wasn't stressful. It was fun, interesting. I wasn't quite ready to just do a random marshmallow pitch, but it was really fun. But it's so true. Absolutely, Rita. I think it's, you're competing with all the noise out there and everyone, like dogs to a bone, to get noticed. You have to be prepared. You need to, really deep dive to find out what it is about your technology solution that is really different. Like, what's your wow, X factor, point of difference that's just going to stand out within seconds. And, brand always helps, having a really nice logo, eye-catching colors, your people that are genuinely passionate about your startup and talk about it with the same passion as you have as a founder, building your team that share the same vision for growth. There's a lot of moving parts to getting noticed and building that trust, credibility, and thought leadership than just being able to pitch right. There's a lot of subliminal messaging that goes on behind it that makes brands really resonate.
And the more you practice, the better you get. As we know, elevator pitch comes from the fact that you pitch. You have this chance meeting your potential investor in the elevator, and you've got 30 seconds. Usually it's 30. You are in US. In Poland, for example, they extended it into 3 minutes. So sometimes it's getting very tedious. But that's your chance to pitch your idea and focus on your good storytelling. Azadeh, coming back to the storytelling, what was the most compelling storytelling you've heard in the last year or two?
Yeah, so one of the very interesting stories that we put together is actually a data-driven one. So during the pandemic, there were a lot of shifts in the appetite for data-driven decision-making, especially in the APAC region. So we actually pioneered the first data research report in partnership with Sisense, which is a business intelligence platform. I think it was about 400 respondents. We asked about their appetite for business intelligence, data analytics, how they're using AI, what are their challenges, really deep dived into all of the appetite for AI and BI in the region. And we created a very compelling, very interesting research report, which we then dovetailed into a PR campaign. It received significant media coverage. And we also ran a number of events and webinars off the back of it as well. That was the largest report of its kind within the region, which had significant reach, and it was also quoted, and it impacted a lot of C-suite decision makers as well.
And what was their story that was so compelling, apart from generating a lot of data?
Yeah, so a lot of the story was uncovering the appetite for business intelligence and data analytics in the region, and uncovered some of the main blockages of adoption. So really, some things that really resonated is some of the real internal structural problems and issues that organizations have in the region when it comes to adopting new technologies. One thing that really resonated as well from the report was the lack of C-suite buy-in for new technologies, which again was a problem that we've seen across the board. So you'll have an amazing piece of technology. The CIO is crying out for it, saying we need it, but then the CFO or the CRO or the CEO doesn't want to invest the money. They don't see what the ROI is. They're looking at it from a financial and commercial lens, not from a technical, architectural solution lens. So there's a lot of those friction points that prevent adoption of innovative tools. So those are the kind of things that really was uncovered in the research, which then uncovered a lot of very interesting talking points and discussions around these topics.
And you were there to help to uncover that PR and marketing story for your client. Now, thinking about not everybody can reach out to you, or not everybody can afford to reach out for a company with such magnitude as yourself. How to find a local PR and marketing agency and spot the buddies or spot the good ones that are going to help startup?
Yeah, so we as an agency, we I would say are very competitive in our pricing and very flexible in our structure, unlike a lot of the larger global agencies that work on very, very big retainers. We're actually quite competitive. We would position ourselves a cross between agency and consultancy. What we would suggest is if you are looking for a really good media and marketing PR partner, have a look at who their client base is. Have they worked with similar clients in the past? Do they understand your customers? Do they have the use cases and proof points that show that they can really help you? Because no two technology PR specialists or PR agencies are the same. There are some specialists that just work, for instance, in fintech or in consumer tech, where there are some agents that are more in the data analytics or the MarTech space or B2B tech and not so much consumer B2C tech. So really find PR specialists that have a proven track record within your specific area. I'd say start with that, and then second of all, just also have a look at you know that if you do want to do your due diligence, contact their previous clients and just have a chat with them. A lot of the time, the marketing and technology ecosystem is so small that you can easily, through word of mouth, go, hey, have you worked with these people in the past? So how were they really? What were they really like? Were they responsive? Did they give you, value? Did you get the ROI? And just do your homework before you invest in, in a PR partner.
What are the events or startup hubs worthy of time of a startup that is based in Europe or US that need to come and need to pin down in their calendar in Australia right now?
Oh gosh, that's it's a little bit hard to say because there are so many different technology events across different verticals. I mean, you've got your online retailer and the retail events, and you've got your CDAO, the Corinium events, the programmatic stuff. It just depends on what niche you're in, because there are, you could spend every day going to an event if you want. So, it's sort of hard to answer unless you know which specific technology vertical you're really in.
I'm wondering because, everybody knows about Tech Open Air in Berlin or Web Summit in Lisbon. So I'm wondering, is there equivalent in Australia that people need to know about?
I wouldn't say there's like the one festival that everyone goes to. Like, I'll give you an example. Like Corinium, they run a CDAO event, which is a data analytics, but they'll do a tour. So they'll have one in Brisbane, they'll have one in Melbourne, they'll have one in Sydney. They won't have one where everybody would go to. You will get larger summits, like in the marketing technology space, like Adobe will do a big summit. Salesforce, with their Dreamforce, they have like a small local version of it. AWS and Gartner. Those are the big events that resonate quite a lot with a lot of our clients. Snowflake, they run some pretty big events as well in the region. But again, it's hard to pinpoint that one big mega festival that draws in every.
Well, if there is a startup that wants to reach out to Azadeh, I highly recommend. Now, speaking about compelling story, about how to get your message across, Azadeh, what is the number one niche everybody should look into in the startup world?
The number one niche in how to frame your story, or the number one niche in the technology platforms to innovate?
In the technology space that everybody should focus on now. You mentioned data as being very highly regarded. Data.
The big machine, that big beast that's constantly churning the data. if you're in the AI, I mean, you look at ChatGPT and all of that space of how it's revolutionizing how we research and communicate. If you can understand how to embed BI, data visualization tools, or anything that can help manage large volumes of data, and understand data and make it manageable for big organizations, there's a lot of potential there, because we're living in such a big data centric ecosystem. From that angle, it's a very exciting space to be in. AI, the ethics around AI, so sustainable and ethical forms of AI solutions. That's also, getting a little bit of that trendiness around it. With now that we've got the rise of e-commerce and retail and everything going omni-channel, there's so much potential, to do any sort of customer acquisition type innovation. Then you're looking beyond all of those, which are those are our specialties. But beyond those, if you're looking at agriculture tech, sports tech, wearables, IoT, medical technology. I mean, there's so much incredible innovation happening beyond what we necessarily specialize in, that are so incredible, that are really helping save lives and change, could potentially change the planet for the better. I mean, having massive impact. Those sorts of technologies are, incredible to be part of as a startup.
Thank you, Azadeh, for brainstorming your ideas for the great niches. I know this question is so perverse. I actually was approached once with a question of where is the niche I should focus on. Now, talking about ChatGPT, I actually found a funny meme recently. A little boy was asking for a PR specialist, and he doesn't need to pay. He's only offering $5 per hour, because all the rest is going to be done by ChatGPT. What's your take on that?
Look, for full transparency, I haven't dabbled too much with testing ChatGPT out and all its capabilities. So for me, I can't really. I don't know its full potential. All I know that is you can, for you to be able to do for what we do, which is very niche and very specific to technology, there has to be that human layer and that contextual layer to anything that we communicate and articulate. So yes, I don't know to what kind of services he is offering, and whether
or how far it's going to go.
Yeah, or I don't know. I mean, we'll have to test him out. I might have to hire him on a project and see how well he does.
Who knows what's going to happen? They probably are going to sift through some of your wording, and actually you're going to boost their productivity. So you just be careful. Definitely human factor is not replaceable in any AI path. Now, Azadeh, we are heading towards the end of our story, and I'm mindful of the time. So key tips to getting noticed by local prospects, if you could wrap it up in, let's say, 5 points.
Key tips. Okay, so number one, like we said before, understand what are the local critical business problems and industry problems you solve. Now, then really think about your customers and your prospects' true pain points. What are those deep, critical pain points that you really solve? And how do you do it better than your competitors? And finally, you really identify what are those star qualities about your product that really make it exciting and resonate. Finally, make sure you have a local spokesperson, a local executive, a local customer champion, local brand ambassador, someone who is your real champion that can help articulate your stories and get that human trust. Because at the end of the day, if you're looking at B2B technology, yes, it's business to business, but you will ultimately, you're buying from a human being. So you need to get those individuals, front runners, talking about your technology solution in a very compelling and trustworthy way.
Azadeh, you're a role model for many females, and we know that females struggle with a lot of uncertainty and a lot of, dealing with kids at home and multitasking. What is your advice to females who want to make a compelling story and not be worried about how they come across and not be worried about all these stories about female leaders or female CEOs only get 2% of VC funding?
It's a real problem, and we're seeing a lot of female founders that we speak to have the same issue. We're hoping the narrative will change, and we're starting to see a very slow shift. But whatever you do, you bear in mind that we, as a society, we're going through a significant change. The technology shifts that are happening now have never happened in history. We're going through a massive historic change. Whatever we're doing as female founders, as female innovators, storytellers within technology, we are making history. The struggles that we are facing, we have to do it. We have to fight through. We have to break those ceilings because we're doing it for the next generation. And when I made the shift from journalism to starting an agency, and saw a lot of the issues running a business, being female, and I'd walk into a boardroom, I'd be the only one there with dark long hair, an unusual name. Everyone else would be, white, European or Anglo-Saxon, middle-aged, male, and I would feel like, oh gosh, do I have to make myself smaller? Do I have to make myself more masculine? No, just own who you are, be who you are, be proud of it, be your authentic self, do what you do because you know you're good at it. And eventually your vibe attracts your tribe, and you just have to keep pursuing and persevering. And if people are not investing in you or are not hiring you because of their own prejudices, that's their loss. And you know what? It will eventually come around.
Yep. It comes around. For the next generation of girls making marshmallows, sculptures, you need to persevere and you need to showcase your story. Now, Azadeh, none of us are able to achieve success without some help along the way. Is there a particular person you're grateful towards? Is it your partner in crime in your company, who is your husband,
yeah,
or somebody
absolutely.
else?
Yeah, look, I started the company. I moved from journalism to running a PR agency. We grew very quickly. My husband was a technology and design educator, and he gave up a 20-year career, a very successful career, to really bring that extra support that's needed in the business from a commercial side, business operations side, to streamline our business and help it grow, and also create an environment where our business can thrive, and that as a PR consultant myself, I can be also the best I can be, where he looks after a lot of the business operations. And we have pulled through COVID. We have gone through thick and thin. Obviously, a husband and wife, it's been challenging to know when the boundaries stop, to create healthy boundaries and respect each other's roles. And it's been incredible with a family as well, a young child. But we have now realized, after this is our 6th year of being in business, we now have an office in the UK as well, and capability on the ground, that what we have built is a very special, delicate ecosystem of our business and our family and our customers, our our partners, our staff, our team. It's a very delicate ecosystem. It's not to be taken for granted, and it's a real gift that we have created for ourselves that we should value and cherish, because it's really our it's our future, and it's setting up a lot of success for those who are in on the journey.
Just as I said at the beginning, we are an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. Azadeh, going to the question about book I wish I could read before I started my journey, my career. What is the number one book you want everybody to know about?
Yes, so absolutely. Before you go any further in your startup or your business or anything you're doing, read Clockwork by Michael Michalowicz. It really helps you understand how to create streamlined systems for your business to prevent burnout, to create scalable business, a way that you can work, that you can delegate and not have to be pulled in many different directions and still take a holiday. One of the mistakes that I made was I just threw myself right into the deep end and gave it everything and didn't know when to stop, and I was burning the candle at both ends. Within 2 years, I was very much burnt out. And reading this book, and also another good book is Ross Edgley's Art of Resilience, to really help you understand what it takes to build resilience and lead. These two books have helped me through some really tough times through COVID and all that uncertainty. And I wish I'd read those before, before changing and switching from journalism to PR.
Can you please give us your life lesson quote, and how did it change you?
Yes, so I'm really passionate about literature and poetry. It's part of my soul, and one of my most loved quotes is, "For a man's reach should extend his grasp, or what's a heaven for?" And it's a quote by Robert Browning from a poem called Andrea del Sarto. And for me, it's always about just striving, continuing to strive, continuing to learn, continuing to grow, pushing outside of your boundaries, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. So you're always extending and growing and challenging yourself. And that's the way that I feel that's a really great philosophy to have in business and in life.
Well, we pushed your boundaries today with the pitch for the marshmallow, definitely. And you showed us the art of resilience, Azadeh. There was lots of quotations here. Are you working on any exciting projects right now?
Well, beyond working on some amazing campaigns with our clients across, multiple regions, as an agency, we love doing what we call our AZK Meets videos, where we do a walk and talk with quite successful founders and technology leaders, and we do them all around the world, from London, Paris, to Sydney, Melbourne, and we're hoping we can get a few done in the United States this year, or some other interesting exotic locations on top of that. And it's just a wonderful way to engage with leaders and meet amazing people, but also to celebrate some interesting stories in new and unconventional ways, which we amplify on our LinkedIn channels, both our company channels and personal pages. And it's just a wonderful way to build that technology storytelling. It's just a bit more of a quirky and human way.
I watched some of it, and I have to say, as a founder, I can struggle with multitasking. Walking and talking is definitely your strength, Azadeh. I really loved and enjoyed your way of interviewing startup founders, and hopefully you will make it to Turks and Caicos Island, where we are heading next in our journey. It's not too far away from Miami, so since you're in the vicinity, I hope we can meet there. Now, we are close to the end of our live stream. And as we like to quote, Eleanor Roosevelt once says, women are like tea bags. We don't know our true strength until we are in hot water. In life, how are you in hot water? How are you brewing, Azadeh?
Like a good chocolate chai.
Love it. Chocolate chai, very, very intense and leaves an aftertaste.
Yes, that's right. And full of surprises.
Absolutely. Now, imagine the pandemic and all the struggles and firing is over, and you can pick any person in the world and have a private breakfast anywhere in the world. Who would you choose, and where would you go to?
Yeah, this question I think is quite emotional for me because it's actually my grandmother's birthday this week, and she's almost 100. So if there's one person that I would love to have a breakfast with, just in her own little home, it would be my grandmother. She's one of the strongest, smartest women I know, and she has always supported me every step of the way, whether it's my career choices, personal choices, and she's always full of immense wisdom, and she has that beautiful stoic element to her that just adds that that little bit of spark and magic to my life. So it would have to be my grandmother.
And she lives in?
So she lives in Tehran, in Iran. Yeah, so it's impossible for me to ever visit because of the circumstances in the country, and of course she's way too old to travel to me. So in another universe, in another time and space, we would have a little breakfast.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for that story, Azadeh. That's it. Tell me a fact and I will learn. Tell me a truth and I'll believe. But tell me a story and it will live in my heart forever, as Sabo said. Azadeh, it was a true pleasure to host you today from the future. And that's it from episode 91 of the PhD livestream. To stay updated and ensure you never miss a positivity hack delivered, follow Woman on It and turn on notifications to be alerted. As always, our positivity quote comes from positive thinking only and goes, look for something positive in each day. Even in some days, you have to look harder. Resilience is the way to go for Azadeh and many startups who want to thrive in the startup world. Today is your day to hack the future, hack the positivity you want. Good luck.